Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the West First March 21st council meeting. We're all together in a room for the first time in I don't know how many months, so it's kind of nice to see everybody in person again. Just before we get started, I would ask that we have a moment of reflection. And there's several things that we can probably reflect on during this moment, and some of them are local, and some of them are what's been going on for the last. Okay, thank you. All right, first item on the agenda then is confirmation of the agenda, and I have a movement and second for that, please. Councillor Rose and Councillor Murray. And I'm just going to, before we get too far, your name in front of your things. If you could just give them a half turn in case I draw a blank, that would help me immensely. Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, does anybody have conflict of interest with anything on the agenda tonight? All right, don't see anything. We have a consent agenda here. There's 11 items on the consent agenda. Items that you would maybe like clarification on or pulled. I'll start with Councillor Matheson. I got you.
4.4.
And Councillor Bell. And Councillor Jankowski. I had, pardon me, I had 4.4 as well, Your Worship. All right, so let's go back to 4.4, and I'll go in reverse order then. Dean? Yeah, so it's regarding the municipality of South Huron resolution regarding firefighter certification. I read what their fire department had to say, and I wanted to ask if Chief Hunter could offer his comments and analysis on the situation. It looks like the province is trying to introduce more prescriptive requirements on the certification of volunteer firefighters. And because that's an important, well, it's one of our most important emergency services that we can offer. So anything that affects that department, I would be concerned about how that service has to be managed and delivered in the future. Okay, thanks, Councillor Matheson, do you have anything further to add to that?
No, I just concur with that, and I have actually given Mr. Hunter a heads up that I would be some information. Enlightenment.
Chief Hunter, would you be prepared at this time to comment on that?
Does that sound okay? So just some background on the regulation. So back at the end of January, the Ontario Fire Marshal, through the Ministry of Solicitor General's Ministry, introduced some draft regulations as far as mandatory certification for firefighters across the province of Ontario. Council will probably remember that back in 2017, 2018, there was regulation introduced for something very similar, and it was withdrawn by the government of the day. However, comments were made at that time that it would be reintroduced at some time in the future. So here we are 4 years later, and the very similar certification requirements been introduced. So basically, what the province is saying, that there is different standards of training that we do. All fire departments do across the province. However, the province would want us to be certified. So not just do the training, but be tested and certified through that training. And all fire departments would be treated similarly across the province. So the regulation came out January 28th, and we had to have comments back by February 28th, basically 1 month of consultation period. AMO, as council can see, their number one concern was that the province should allow at least an additional 2 months of consultation period for municipal councils and fire departments to review the proposed regulations a little more thoroughly and give us longer time to put some comments together. The Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, during that 1 month period, held approximately 6 or 8 town hall meetings with fire chiefs, and I was able to participate in most of them. A lot of very similar comments from across the province. Probably the number one was funding, and will this be additional costs to municipalities, and how will it be funded? Will the province be giving us more money? As council is aware, fire services are funded through municipal taxes. We did get a small grant from the ministry last year for training, but prior to that, it had probably been a decade and a half since we've received any direct provincial funding. So the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs prepared 130 pages of comments that they submitted back to the ministry in reference to this proposed regulation. So there's a lot of things that need to be looked at by the ministry. We haven't heard anything back from them since then. They also received AMO's letter in regard to it, and I think AMO really captured it in that I think for the most part municipalities agree that training firefighters is obviously important, and certifying them is a way to test that they are trained properly. However, anything that's going to add additional cost to municipalities should be offset through provincial funding. One of the things we talked about with provincial funding was not necessarily new grants being made available to fire departments, but to actually open up some of the existing grant programs. Council will be aware that most of the grants that are out there now are exclude fire services. The gas tax grant was just recently updated that applications can be made for fire stations with gas tax money, but that is basically it as far as specific grants for fire services. So I'll certainly I can try and answer any questions from council in regards to this, but that's it in a nutshell.
I'm going to go back, I guess, to Councillor Czukowski. Do you have any further questions?
Through you, Your Worship, I would be interested to find out from the chief what our possible financial impact could be. I understand it would be difficult to put a hard number on it, but just within a magnitude of order, based on your current knowledge of what the training certification system or program would look like, would you be able to give us at a future meeting date a general sense of what the cost implications could be without outside funding from the province? And second of all, I guess my other question would be the actual training regimen from a technical standpoint of delivering the training? Are there any obstacles that you would foresee there in order to comply with the regulation? Is there any logistical issues or timing issues involved with achieving the regulation requirements?
So the West Perth Fire Department's in a very good position as far as the level of training of our staff. It's not like we have a large roster of untrained members. Most of the firefighters are trained to the proper standards or are in the process of being trained to the proper standards. We would definitely have to bring in proctors to do the certification testing, but I don't see it being a huge expense for any of that to happen. The fire marshal has offered all fire departments that the testing proctors would come in on their expense. It wouldn't be on the municipality, but obviously there would be an expense to the municipality. For our firefighters, we'd have to pay for their time to go through the testing. So there definitely would be an expense there. Logistically, there probably will be a need for some additional training hours. Currently, we train 2 nights per month, and just I would say that there will be a need for more hours. Other than that, not huge, like not doubling the number of training hours, but certainly an increase, which is obviously an increase in our costs. But overall, I don't see it as being a huge financial impact on the cost of our training.
Hey, I'm going to circle over to Councillor Matheson first and then Councillor Tam. So do you have any further questions you'd like to explain, John?
I guess my only comment or concern is if it's going to be a financial increase, obviously, over the next few years, if that we should be also showing our support to AMO. If it's just AMO's letter, we should obviously be putting out our own letter in support of that. That was on the comment that I had with that.
Councillor Tam.
My question, Bill, would be just how you think that this might, if it would affect the recruitment pool, just by the obligation of the recruitment firefighters.
We're very fortunate in West Perth. When we do a recruitment, we get a lot of applications. And thankfully, a lot of the applicants already have their firefighter 1001 certification, which is like the entry-level certification. It's certainly something that we look for. If somebody can bring that with them when they apply, we don't have to pay to train them to it. As far as recruitment, I think that in the long run, I think this will be a benefit to recruitment in that I think people will look at it, and I hate to use the word of the professionalization of the fire service, but when you have mandated levels of training and testing and certification, it just adds something to your organization. And I think that people will look at that and say, yeah, that's something that I would like to get involved in. And the amount of training and hours that people would need to put in would certainly be known when they applied. But I think, like I said, in the long run, I think it's going to be a positive thing for the fire service as a whole.
Okay, I'm going to circle back and with a comment that Councillor Matheson made, and I guess I'll look at Councillor Kankowski as well. So from the discussion that we've had with Chief Hunter, an option is that we could probably support this resolution from South Huron if you so wish. And if so, I would just need a mover and seconder to do that, and then we can go from there. So moved by Councillor Matheson, seconded by Councillor Kankowski. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, that is carried. We will pull that one out and we've dealt with it. So the next one then is 4.6 and Councillor Bell, some comments on that one.
I just think it's, as I read it, I very much agree with the fact that fragmented support across several ministries and programs. I just think we should send a letter as well, requesting, that they transfer to the provinces. Because I think as we, muddle our way out of the murky waters of the last 2 years, I completely agree with the statement in this letter. And I just would like to see a letter of support as well if everyone feels the same way. We don't.
Any other comments with regards to that resolution? Councillor Jankowski.
I would support Councillor Bell's idea, just based on the number of visits and phone calls I've received from constituents over the last 2 years. This last 2 years has been a strain on everybody. So anything from a mental health perspective that can be offered to help people deal with their various situations would be most beneficial.
Okay, on that note then, I would take a mover and a seconder that would support the resolution or the letter, I guess it is, from the Township of Woolwich. Councillor Bell is going to move that. Councillor Jankowski will second that. Any further comments on that one? Don't see anybody's hand up. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. All right, so we will approve the consent agenda with the exception of 4.4 and 4.6. We've dealt with them separately. So the rest of the items under the consent agenda, we need a mover and seconder to accept that consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Harold, seconded by Councillor Bell. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. So the next item is a public meeting. So we need to recess our council meeting at 7:25. So a mover and seconder to do that, Councillor Vink and Councillor Rose. All those in favor? That is carried. So the public meeting is being called to order at 7:25. The public meeting is being held in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest by any member of council? At this time, I'll ask Clerk Hobson for the purpose of the public meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this public meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Perth is to review the application for a proposed amendment to Bylaw 100-1998, the zoning bylaw of the Municipality of West Perth, and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regard to the application. Council will not make a decision on the application at this public meeting. Based on the recommendations and information received at this public meeting, an amending zoning bylaw will be presented for approval during the regular council meeting later this evening. If any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on this application, they are to provide their name and mailing address and email to me this evening via clerk@westperth.com. A person or public body may appeal a decision if they have made an oral submission at this public meeting or a written submission to council prior to the passing of the bylaw. Notice was given by mail to all landowners within 120 meters of the land affected by the proposed amending bylaw and to those agencies as prescribed by regulation. A sign advertising tonight's meeting was posted on the property on February 28, 2022. Correspondence received following the posting of the notice will be presented by Planner Susanna Reed.
Okay, this is a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment. The application was initiated by Lady Acres Limited and affects property described as Lot 23, West Part Lot 22, Concession 10, Hibbert Ward, Municipality of West Perth. 911 numbers being 7300, line 21. I will now call upon Susanna Reed, planner for the Municipality of West Perth, to review the application. Susanna?
Thank you very much, Mayor McKenzie. Are you able to hear me? Yes, okay. This is a rezoning application, as the mayor has mentioned, submitted by Milady Acres. Barbara Fouts is acting as an agent for the application. It's a condition of consent file B 43-21, which council considered earlier this year. And that consent application has received conditional approval. The application is for the rezoning for a surplus farm dwelling severance. The severed parcel is about 3 acres and the retained parcel is about 149 acres. And the severed parcel is being rezoned from agricultural to A-1. And that recognizes a house that is not accessory to a farm, so a residential lot essentially. And then the retained parcel is being rezoned from agricultural to A-3. And that A-3 special zone restricts the construction of a residence on the farmland. There are policies in the official plan that require rezoning for a surplus farm dwelling severance. They're cited in the planning report. We did receive one call from a neighboring property owner who had received a notice in the mail. She called, Suzanne Lewis called on March 10th, and she indicated that she had no concerns. So the planning recommendation is that the application be approved.
Okay. At this time, I will ask if there's anybody wishing to speak in support of the application other than the applicant or their agent. And I don't believe that we have any. That's the applicant, right? Yeah. Okay. Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Does the applicant or agent wish to speak at this time? We do have Barbara Croats on the line, I believe. She's on by Zoom.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
I'm in Bali, Indonesia, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning, about 7:30 in the morning here. I don't really have anything to say. Is there something I should say? Is there a question I should ask? Like I'm just hoping that it's approved.
Okay, I would just stay on the line for a minute, and my next question is going to be to council if they have any questions with regards to this rezoning, and if they do, I may come back to you for a comment. So, is there any questions from members of council? And I don't see any questions whatsoever, so doesn't appear to be any concern at all. So at this time, I would like to thank those in attendance for their comments. Certainly attendance by long distance is that maybe set the record for this one. And should council proceed with the adoption of the zoning bylaw amendment, the notice of passing will be provided as prescribed by the Planning Act and a 20-day appeal period to the Ontario Tribunal. At this time then, the Council of Municipality of West Perth now closes the public meeting at 7:31 and reconvenes to the regular council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, brings us down to reports, and the first report is from Chief Hunter, and he's just going to update us on activities for the last couple of weeks, I guess. So, Chief Hunter.
Thank you. So yeah, just going to give council an update on the search that we conducted for Talea Paris. So Talea disappeared on Sunday, March 6th at 10:23 in the morning, and we worked until 9:30 that night. We had on Sunday, we had 22 West Perth firefighters searching. Plus, we had mutual aid firefighters from Perth East, St. Mary's, and Stratford. We basically searched World Creek on Sunday. St. Mary's and Stratford were requested that day because they both have surface water search teams with inflatables. So they were able to actually go on the ice. Seburnville assisted the West Perth firefighters with the ground search. Both Perth East and West Perth are only allowed to do land-based water rescues. We had considerable OPP on scene, as council's probably aware, but I'll list off what we had. OPP Aviation, their helicopter, their canine, their emergency response team, and their underwater search and recovery team. We also requested the Huron Area Search and Rescue team, which is a volunteer group. So they came down and assisted us on Sunday. We also brought in victim services for the family. The search continued for the next 8 days with our West Perth firefighters being assisted by firefighters from St. Mary's, Seburnville, Milverton, Shakespeare, North Perth, Bryanston, Zora, Northern Bruce Peninsula, and Hanover. The London Fire Department didn't send any personnel up, but they did provide us with equipment that we could use. While we were searching, obviously all the West Perth firefighters were busy searching, so we set up a mutual aid coverage with our neighbors from Huron East, South Huron, North Perth, St. Mary's, and Perth East, so that they would cover any alarms in West Perth. So we searched the entire World Creek from where Talea disappeared all the way down to the spillway in St. Mary's several times. Several areas were many times. Council, I'm sure council is aware the community was extremely supportive during the search with food. We had no shortage of food at the fire station, coffee, cold drinks. We had off-road vehicles donated for our use, and certainly the moral support of the community. So Talea was found on Monday at about 2:45 in the afternoon. We're still working on total number of hours that we put into the search, but it was certainly significant. But our goal was to find her and bring her back to her family. So we were able to do that. We are going to do a combined emergency service debrief in the near future with fire and OPP and anybody that assisted us. I think CAO Brick's got some information on the memorial. Over the 9 days, the community's been putting teddy bears and flowers and notes of support on the Wellington Street Bridge, and I believe there might be some on the St. David Street Bridge too as well. But Jeff can speak to that, and I can certainly answer any questions from council.
I'll just add the memorial first, and then we can perhaps take questions. So we are working with the OPP to obtain input from the family on the path forward with the memorial. We want to respect the nature of the memorial and the importance of the memorial to the community, but acknowledge the perishable nature of the material that's making up the memorial, the stuffed animals. Particularly, we've been starting to receive calls from people in the community that are offering to assist us with drying out the animals and the stuffed animals and getting them ready for either donation to the family or donation to some kind of a cause. So we're just finalizing details, but I would say that as early as tomorrow afternoon, the public works staff will respectfully remove the memorial items. We're going to take them and dry them out as best we can. And then there may be some community memorial this weekend that I don't have the full details on, but I believe that we will get them to that event, and then they will eventually be offered to the family or donated. So that's as much as I have on that. The OPP has been very helpful about being the liaison between the municipality and the family so that they can deal with the same people. And we certainly appreciate their assistance with that.
Any questions? It certainly, you know, it's been, I guess, to say the least, a historic event through our municipality. And I think everybody was just overwhelmed with the support that we had, as Chief Hunter has said, from other municipalities. And certainly appreciate all the support that we got, because, you know, there's no way we could handle it on our own. It's a real sales pitch, I think, for mutual aid and why we have it. And, you know, it's certainly an invaluable tool to all the municipalities. And we have received emails from other municipalities, you know, basically, you know, considering us in their thoughts and prayers, and the whole community as well relayed that message through various methods, whether it was by putting teddy bears on the bridge or supplying our firefighters with food and coffees or what have you. So I think the thing that I noticed was how it drew the whole municipality together, and you know, it showed the sincere, I guess, the sincere gesture of what people in West Perth are like, and I think it came through loud and clear. So if there's no further questions for either one of our speakers, I have a motion here that the Council of Municipality of West Perth accepts the search and recovery verbal update as information. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Murray and Councillor Duck. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, and thank you, Bill. And you can relay to the firefighters certainly our appreciation. Good. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Recreation Facilities and Parks Manager's report. So Darcy is online here. So Darcy, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie and Council. My report is pretty straightforward. It is to finish up the Veterans Park with the landscaping tender for the side closest to the arena. We did receive 6 bids. The top 3 are listed there. And it is pertinent to note that this will be funded through Parkland Reserve, so it does not affect the tax levy. I will gladly take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Darcy. Any questions for Darcy on the tender process for that? Okay, I don't see any. So the recommendation that we have is that the municipality of West Perth awards the Veterans Park landscaping tender to Drummond Brothers Landscaping Limited in the amount of $42,616 plus HST. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Bell. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. It's a lot easier to look around the room and see everybody's hands up. It works much better. All right, there's a report here from the treasurer with regards to council remuneration, and I don't believe Wendy's with us tonight, is she?
So Wendy had something come up and was unable to attend tonight's meeting. Wendy prepared the report. It was circulated with the agenda. If there's questions, I can certainly, they're the kind of questions likely. This is a standard legislative report that council receives every year. If there are specific questions that any councillor would like to follow up on, we can check with payroll and go back through. But I'm prepared to recommend it for approval if there are no specific questions.
Just for Doug and I's convention there, like it hasn't happened yet. It's 2022 that we're going. This is for 2021. He hasn't been there.
So to answer your question, Councillor Tam, what happened is with the original date of the convention and the registration of it, the registrations went in 2021. So they showed up as remuneration in 2021, although you won't be actually going to it until April.
Any other questions? Okay, the resolution that's here, the recommendation that's here is that the municipality of West Perth accepts the 2021 council remuneration report as information. We have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Vink, and a seconder, Councillor Harold. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. Moving on then, we have a report from the clerk, restricted acts after nomination day. Dan?
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. Before you tonight is a report on what's commonly referred to as the lame duck clause in the Municipal Act. You'll note through the Act that there's basically two occasions, which is one from nomination through to the current term end date of council, or from final voting day until the end of current term of council. And this is if there is less than 75% returning, which in our case is 8.25 or 9. So what is common practice here is that there is a delegation of authority through to the CAO for certain limits that the Municipal Act would put on the council of the day during their current term. Additionally, we've looked at some revisions to the council meeting schedule. We have changed the most recent one where we just amended it from the 28th to the 29th due to council availability. And as well, we're looking at just some of those meetings that are through that election period, not holding meetings there unless council so desired to, or if there was a need, the chair could call a meeting. But we would be recommending right now that we don't hold meetings through that time. If there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions for the clerk on that? Councillor Matheson.
You said that there could possibly the chair, the head of council would, those two council meetings that are canceled. I'm just concerned that that's a bit of a gap. I know there's not, we can't financially do things, but like just going by tonight's agenda, there's been a lot on, this is quite a bit, and a lot of it's not budget related. So, you know, that's a lot of stuff that could get piled on the new council in the startup in November, from October 2nd to mid-November. That's a big span. I'm just thinking that, you know, is it necessary to cancel those meetings at this time, or should we be waiting till closer to that date? Maybe look at it, how things are going. Like things change, right? And I just hate to see it be canceled now if there is stuff that can be addressed. That's my concern.
I don't have much to add. It is a comfort level of council. It is common practice what we've been proposing here, just through that, I guess, election period and campaign period is basically what it's looking at. And again, the chair could call a meeting, but if council wants to meet, we can meet.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, Councillor Matheson has raised an issue about maybe having one meeting in that time frame there. Any other comments with regards to that? And I guess when we get closer to the time, if we see that there's something there, it's not financially related, we could always add one back in again. But the staff recommendation is before us, so I'm hoping for your wishes here. Councillor Chinkowski.
Your worship, I would support Councillor Matheson's suggestion of having at least one meeting during that time duration.
Councillor Tam.
I would agree with that. Also, I'm thinking like, especially for planning, if we have planning matters every month, you get 6 weeks in there and planning, staff reports, etc. It could be a lot of stuff all at once.
Okay, what's the support around the table? We can add a date. I don't, what would the date be, Dan, if we added one?
Oh, no. What I was going to say was if we cancel the October 17th meeting, because that's during the election, that voting is occurring on that day because of the telephone and internet ballots. So that one should be canceled, but then the November 7th one could be still held because that'll be after election to then approve anything that needs to be approved afterwards that we're allowed to approve at that time.
So what you're saying is leave the November 7th meeting in there. I'm just kind of looking around. Councillor.
Yeah, I'd like to support that too. I know obviously coming into things in the mix, it's a lot to take in. So for new councillors coming in, if there's anything that we can maybe address going out beforehand, that might be advantageous to everybody. And that's just show support for everyone there so far.
Okay, I get the feeling that the majority of council would like the November 7th meeting left in there. So what do we have to do here? We'll just leave it in as part of the no council. Right, okay. So when we get to the second part of the motion to amend the council schedule as follows. So the March 28th is to be changed to March 29th. October 17th is canceled. And November the 7th will not be canceled. And then November the 16th is added for the inaugural meeting of the new council. Okay. So that's how we'll do that. Any further comments at this time? I'll read the resolution. It's fairly lengthy here. That the Council of the Municipality of West Perth directs the clerk to prepare a bylaw prior to the nomination day, August the 19th, delegating authority to the Chief Administrative Officer from August the 19th, 2022 to November the 16th, 2022. Be the financial signing authority for expenditures or incurring liabilities outside the 2022 budget exceeding $50,000 and or for the disposition of any real or personal property of the municipality which has a value exceeding $50,000 at the time of disposal. Being the authority to hire or dismiss any officer or employee within the municipality, and that the authority to hire be restricted to not exceed the current allotted staff positions, excluding those that are 100% provincially funded. And that council directs the clerk to amend the 2022 council meeting schedule as follows. The March 28th, 2022 special council meeting be changed to March the 29th. October 17th, regular council meeting be canceled. November 16th be added for the inaugural meeting of the 2022 to 2026 term. We have a mover and seconder for that resolution, moved by Councillor Vink, seconded by Councillor Matheson. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Great, thank you. Next report then is the CAO with regards to the Friendship Center. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie. And the report was circulated with the council package. As council is aware, we've taken the necessary legislative actions with council to declare the Friendship Center surplus. We've incorporated the programming space of the Friendship Center into the new municipal office, and had it's in there with other supporting space, including accessible washrooms. So at this point in time, we're now have the survey completed and prepared to proceed with the sale of the Friendship Center. In the past, we had talked to council about two options: the sale by public auction in live format, the conventional public auction format, or the sale by public auction, but using the hybrid auction technology, which allows the online version. Given the current situation and the outlook with COVID and the time of year, I am recommending that we proceed with sale by live auction. We did very well with the sales that we had for our rural shops when we disposed of those. And I'm got two dates available for you: April the 28th, which is a Thursday at 4 p.m., or Thursday, May the 5th at 4 p.m. And the only advantage of the second one is it gives an extra week. We don't quite have the information package available in the advertising quite ready yet, but that will be prepared this week. And I think if council had a preference for either one of them, we could make it work.
Okay, questions for Jeff at this time? I guess we need a bit of a discussion with regards to a date as to what your priority would be. Councillor Harold.
Yeah, I think the later date would be a better choice. Just give us time to get the advertising and get all the paperwork ready, and then give the buyers a little time to get their stuff together.
Other comments? Councillor Jankowski?
Similar to the rural shops auction, the pre-auction process, I'm supposing that the public will have opportunity to view and inspect the facilities prior to the auction.
So great question, Councillor Jankowski. We'll have a disclosure package like we did with the rural shops, and it will include a condition assessment for the building that we obtained in 2017. And I would anticipate that we will allow anyone that wishes to inspect it in advance. It'll be easy enough for us to open it, and then we will open it on the day of the auction as well.
Any other questions? Okay, the suggestion has been made that we plug in May 5th as a date in there. Do we have kind of agreement on that particular date? Okay. I'll read the recommendation with that in there. So the recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth approves the sale of the Friendship Center building by public auction at 4 p.m. on Thursday, May the 5th, 2022. I have a mover and seconder for that. Everybody's putting their hands up. Councillor Harrell and Councillor Rose. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? If any, that is carried. Thank you. And you have a COVID-19 operational update as well.
Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie. The next report in your agenda package is an operational update, which confirms the actions that we're taking in terms of masking, in terms of COVID vaccine policy. It's just placing all of those operational considerations into a single report to bring council up to date. The recommendation is simply a recommendation that council accepts the operational update for information.
Any questions for Jeff on that? Okay, if there's no questions, recommendation is that Council Municipality of West Perth accepts the COVID-19 operational update report as information. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Duck. And seconded by Councillor Murray. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. The next item is we had some correspondence from the Ministry of Infrastructure regarding the Getting Ontario Connected Act. It's there for our information. If there is no discussion on that, recommendation is that Municipality of West Perth accepts the correspondence as information. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose and Deputy Mayor Ike. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Brings us down to council reports, and the first one is the Environmental Services 2021 Mitchell Annual Wastewater Report. And I'm not sure, Jeff, are you Cheryl, or who's going to do this one?
I will, and we have the chair of the Environmental Services Committee here if there's any questions. Legislative requirement that we file this report on an annual basis and approve it by resolution. So the report is in your information package. We don't have Environmental Services Coordinator Wright online or Operations Manager Kramer, but if there were questions, we should get them. I do want to mention, and I'm certain that the chair of the Environmental Services Committee, Chair Matheson, and the mayor, who was also with us in the recent audit. We had an outstanding audit just completed recently. We have a very thorough set of processes in place. These requirements are very strictly legislated, but we are dealing with a very vulnerable part of the municipal operation when it comes to providing potable drinking water, and the experience in Ontario has been that it has to be done very, very well, and there are very strict regulatory milestones built into the process to ensure that we have all the I's dotted and T's crossed. So I think our staff have done an outstanding job again this past year with meeting our requirements, and the report is presented for council's consideration.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Anybody have any questions with regards to the report? Fairly extensive report. No questions? All right. Then I do have a recommendation here that the Municipality of West Perth accepts the 2021 Annual Mitchell Wastewater Report. Moved by Councillor Jankowski, seconded by Councillor Matheson. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Next report is the Mitchell and Area Mobility Bus Committee, and Councillor Rose, you're on that. So is there anything there you'd like to highlight?
I don't think so. I'll answer any questions. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Any questions for Councillor Rose on that? Okay, moving on then. Next item then is the approved budget from Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. Councillor Murray, anything there you'd like to highlight?
No, I have nothing to add. Any questions? I'll take questions. We have our next meeting tomorrow.
Okay, we did have them come and make a presentation at our council a couple meetings ago. So any questions for Councillor Murray on Upper Thames? Okay, recommendation then, if there's no question, is or questions, that the Council Municipality of West Perth accepts the reports from councillors as information. We have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Vink, and seconded by Councillor Rose. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We do have a bylaw, and it's zoning bylaw 261 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 100, 1998 as amended for the property described as lot 23, West Part 22, concession 10 of the Hibbert Ward of the municipality of West Perth. And the recommendation is that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth gives first, second, and third and final reading to zoning bylaw Z 261, 2022, this 21st day of March. Moved by Councillor Vink. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Duck. Any further comments or questions on that? Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The announcements are there. I guess I'll just draw attention to the first one. The meeting, I think, as we're all aware of now, has been changed to March the 29th, as I announced earlier. The rest of them are all fairly straightforward. Any notices of motion? Any other business at this particular time? Closed session to the public? Nothing? So confirmatory bylaw. And the motion is that bylaw 28, 2022, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Perth for the meeting dated March the 21st. Be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. The mover and seconder for that, Councillor Rose, Councillor Murray. All those in favor? That is carried. And finally, motion that the municipality of West Perth join the council meeting at 8:04. I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Duck and Councillor Harold. All those in favor? It is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.